If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Disclaimer. The Organic Matrix is a platform intended to give a voice to people of all walks of life. This podcast is not intended to be used for influence or to be used as medical advice. Welcome back to the Organic Matrix, and I'm so happy that you're joining us here again. Last week, Ron and I spoke into the idea of unity and community. This week, we continue our conversation about social stigmas and the differences between cultural norms in the city and in rural communities.
You spoke into a lot of different things. That's a different dynamic of like where we're at. Like growing up, there was in my little town, there was only like 2 black families. And like one day this black lady was walking her dog down the main street and somebody called the police. And there's a black lady walking down, you know what I mean? And she was a very prominent, I think she was a lawyer or something. She was a very prominent woman, you know what I mean? Like, and she had every right to walk down the street. I mean, oh my gosh. But that's how ignorant, that's why I'm speaking into the ignorant part of it. And on the other side of town, there was a black family that one of them became my best friend, and he actually was working for the family. The father taught me how to do body work and painting cars and stuff like that. And, hardworking. They were Haitian, but they were, down to earth and really good people. And we ended up becoming best friends. And that's where I learned, like, he's another person just like me. He would give me the shirt off his back. He was such a nice guy. So, and then when I see like, I think like Roots came out back then, and then you see like, the civil rights movement through the 60s and stuff, and seeing all that, I couldn't understand, like, why are these people so hateful, And then as far as the technology is, to me, this is another part of my mission as of late is an information overload. I had to go look up a word in the Webster's dictionary. I had to go, pull everybody, like families that could afford it bought like the set of encyclopedias, the World Book or the Britannica or something like that. And you went and looked stuff up, to learn, to get knowledge from that. And then there was like yearly update books, like the latest and greatest, like we just landed on the moon or whatever, but they kept upgrading them. And that's how we got our information. And then going to the library to find different books or whatever it was you were looking for, you had to go through the card system with the little card files called the Dewey Decimal System. And you had to look the book up and like you knew where it was on the shelf. I mean, my God, now the technology is like Siri or Google or whatever, and like, give me this answer here. Like, okay, I'm on it or whatever, So the information overload, and like, there's...
Ron's question really stood out to me. Why are people so hateful? Ron mentions his victory with addiction, and I find it inspiring to hear how he managed to find ways to stay sober for over 20 years.
Like when I was caught out being what I call a idiot, I substitute. I'm an addict. Okay, I have over 20 years clean and sober. And when I first got clean, thank you. And when I first got clean, I substituted that addiction to like going to meetings all the time and watching movies. And so I was like, they had the rental place at the Stop and Shop. I don't know if they got those in New York. I think they do. They had the video rental places or whatever. And like, so I'd rent like 2 or 3 movies, sometimes, a couple movies a night or whatever. So I was just always watching movies. And so what I did was substitute my addiction from one to the other. But what I realized was like, when I first started watching like the VHS tapes, you plug it in, and I was watching the movie, and then I'd be like, oh my God, I'm missing what's on the TV. Oh no, oh, that's not right. You know what I mean? Like, it was a weird experience. So now, moving forward 20, 30 years, like now we're like, oh, if I don't watch this video, or if I don't see that, or, I'm going to miss something, you know what I mean? So I want to bring things back to center and simplify, and educate in that regards. Like, how do you grow food? Like planting seeds, like working with the earth, and like, okay, you got to understand the laws of nature, the laws of the universe, like the law of attraction, the law of polarity, the studying the laws. I want to teach people the laws, like the basics of life. Like, if you think this is going to happen. If you say that, this is going to happen. So learning how the reactions and actions and reactions of our human beingness, you know what I mean? And ultimately, we want people to have the calmness of mind. People get all frustrated, road rage, good example, right? People get all frustrated and stuff, and I'll sit there and go, and they're like, oh, you freak, or whatever. More and more people are into that now, but back then it was like, oh, don't give me that guru shit, whatever. It was like, it's a bunch of hokey pokey, whatever. But now people are onto it. Like, the calmness of mind is, as every human being, is what we strive for. And to learn how to have calmness of mind, and learning how to control your mind, and learning how to respond to situations as opposed to reacting. So with ignorance and not understanding and not knowing how to communicate, and having an understanding, we typically will react, as opposed to responding like, oh, wait a minute, he comes from that culture and they like to eat fish heads or something, I don't know, whatever it is. But that's, like you said, that's how they were raised, that's how they know what they know. And to them, eating fish eyes and stuff is like a delicacy, And then to someone that's never been exposed to that, and like, oh, I eat beef and potatoes. That's how, the mentality I was raised in New England, like beef and potatoes. That was because that's survival food, like the root vegetables, the potatoes and the corn, carrots and, beets and all that stuff so that's what I was raised on how to do. Like, that's how you got through the winter until the next spring, and so on and so forth. But, if you live on an island like where I'm here, you go fishing and you live off the fish and, the seaweed and things like that.
Ron explains the evolution of technology from the 19th century to now, and how powerful human energy can be.
Typically, like in the beginning of the 19th century, we had like the cars, electricity. So then we had phonographs and, lights and all that stuff. And then until the 1900s, most towns and things were built around waterways. So you had access to water power. Then electricity came along, then the electric motor. So all that went away. Like you didn't need to be, you could build your factory or whatever pretty much anywhere as long as you had electricity. And then so that technology from the early 1900s up to what the TV was like the late 40s, 50s, something like that, where the TV came out, and then radio was just AM, started evolving to FM. So the frequencies were different. So as we evolved and like the technology got better and better in different frequencies, and then what I was told, and like that's when I started looking into it, like technology gets to a certain point and then it starts squaring out, like how fast it's expanding and growing. Now they're starting to realize that our thoughts, or this is something that's been around for a long time, but now they're starting to like, our thoughts are energy, and you can, think things, and like there's a lot going on in this body and in our brain. There's more energy within our body. If you can harness the energy like in our body, you could light up a whole city. You realize that? Yeah, there's a lot of energy going on here. You know what I mean? And so like learning to master our thoughts and control our minds is like that. Never mind the technology, you just think things, and then like your friend calls you or something like, oh dude, I was just thinking about you, and then they called you or contacted you somehow or whatever. And it's a true thing.
If we welcome things with more curiosity, we would be a lot safer. Like I love that you brought up the fish heads and stuff, because my grandma used to love eating fish heads, but she's from Dominican Republic. Yep. And I personally grew up in America. I never ate that. She would cook it, and chicken feet, and I'd be like, a hard pass. Like, give me a Big Mac. Well, I'm just kidding. But but when you mention like us being like energy and frequency beings, like that's 100%, because there, that there's a metal inside of our nose that's like a satellite, and it tells us what direction. It's a big part of our intuition. And like if you Google it, like a metal in a human nose, it'll tell you it's like similar to the technology of a compass.
Yes.
So
no, I've knew that, and it's more prevalent in men, that we can naturally find north, magnetic north. Yeah, that's a real thing. But also like the third eye with the pineal gland, and that's something of the dumbing down of society. That's until I changed how I eat and how I live, I didn't realize what's going on, like the fluorides, the stuff in the water, the stuff that's in the atmosphere, and the stuff that's in the food, like the pesticides and the things they put on the food, and where the food is grown from the stuff that's falling out of the atmosphere, the aluminum size from the chemtrails or whatever, and that falling into the soil, and that's growing into the plant, and the plant, we're eating the plant. But that's all part of crystallizing our pineal gland. So people are not tapped into their intuition like we used to be able to see things.
If you were wondering what a pineal gland is and what it does, I have the answer for you right here. According to WebMD, the pineal gland is a pine cone-shaped gland in our brains. The pineal gland plays a role in controlling our sleep patterns and how we make decisions, and how we perceive our reality. It also produces melatonin. 100%. And that's something I found out like early in my awakening. And it's like when you Google a calcified pineal gland, it's insane that there's parts of our brains that become crystallized because of the environmental toxins that are exposed to us on a daily basis. And like how people are just not aware of it. And it's like radium. Like I found out there's radium inside of tap water. When I was in the pandemic, like when I was in quarantine, I was watching a bunch of videos, and I found out that radium is like a glow in the dark material that used to be used in factories. They used to put it in medicine. They used to use it to make things glow in the dark, and they didn't do enough research on it. So they thought it was all great for the people. until the factory workers that were like women were like painting things with the radium to make it glow in the dark. There, one woman's jaw deteriorated and fell off. So like radium deteriorates your tissues wherever it is. So like it breaks down your bones, it'll break down your throat. And after her jaw fell off, they had to sue the plant to stop having the radium being produced. The fact that we have like radium inside of our water, like, is freaky, because even though it's a small amount, the how detrimental it is shocking. And then for it to not be common knowledge, like of course they don't want mass hysteria, but they don't promote filtering your water. Like they don't promote ways to prevent disease. And that's where like I see people with technology today being able to do more research on their environment, and they're starting to realize that a lot of things that we should know are being left unsaid. And we're gonna start changing things, because the more our communities grow awareness, like the Kangen Water Society, like the more we can actually take this knowledge that has evidence and bring it to the public, that's when we're actually going to shift as a collective to the next level. And I guess that's like our biggest duty as like these free thinkers and divergent thinkers, is like we can actually provide people tools to actually cleanse their pineal gland and decalcify it, like with alkaline diets, like with the pesticides you mentioned earlier. Like a lot of mental disorders, mood disorders, and symptoms of autism come from inflammation in the brain. So if we can have enough alkaline foods, we can have enough clean water and antioxidants and reduce free radical damage, there would be so much less mental illness, which is what's really plaguing our society now, especially after the pandemic. Like COVID, I feel like is something that we're going over. Like it has a 1.14% death rate. We're going to make it past COVID. But what COVID really showed exposure to is how we don't handle our mental wellness enough. And more so that we have no idea how to self-regulate unless we went out of our own ways to teach it to ourselves, with whether that's like these self-development books, these mastermind meetings that we make. But if someone's not exposed to even picking up that information, it's concerning to imagine like how many people are committing suicide right now, how much domestic violence is happening right now, because one person doesn't know how to meet themselves and how they feel and work through their own emotions. And then you even bring to like self-medication. Like I believe like addiction is like a disease in the sense that it takes over your life and you like lose control after a while. But a lot of addiction comes from self-medicating, because there's some kind of pain that someone's avoiding. And like I speak from experience, like I had my own addiction problems, but I was never addicted to the substance. I was addicted to escaping whatever I was avoiding within myself. And that came in many forms, whether it was a hallucinogen, whether it was marijuana, whether it was alcohol. But when I did find health, when I started the elixir and I started drinking Kangen water, my cravings for addiction completely dropped. Like I went from being an alcoholic, drinking 3 to 5 drinks every single day, to not even being able to finish a beer. Like I have no attachment to the beer. I could start the beer, leave it on the table, forget about it. And the first day I did that, I was like, oh my God, I'm not an alcoholic anymore, because I would never do this in the past. I've never wasted a good beer. So I wish that a lot of people can kind of press rewind. Like I think we were speaking about this yesterday, but it's like when you become a master of your reality, you pick an image of what you want in the future and you live backwards, kind of like Benjamin Button. And I noticed that in like deep meditation too, like where it's like we got to pick a target and then we build the path that goes to it. But the first thing we need is to know what we want. And then we need to figure out how to get there. And then we figure out who are our allies during this journey. And that's where the best part is, you get to create family with these like-minded people. And I'm glad that we can spread that knowledge, because
it was a huge breakthrough for me this year to realize that, like, if to master life is to live it backwards.
Oh yeah, totally. Oh, speaking into addiction, the addiction is for me, it's just more, and it's not having control of my mind and disciplining myself, you know. And like you said, once you do one thing, it triggers another and it keeps it going. Like eating white bleached flour is going to trigger wanting sugar cravings. It's going to one there's an action and reaction, you know, there's a cause and effect. That's part of what's one of the laws in the universe, and understanding that stuff. um and then bringing awareness to our higher faculties. And you know, because we're living a 3D world, like you said, everybody's stuck in a box. They live in a box. They live in a box. They go to a box to work. They make a box lunch. They come home and they watch their box TV or device, you know, and you know, everything's in the box. You know, God forbid if you go outside that box. You know, you and I and people like us thinking like higher dimensions, fifth, sixth dimensions, you know, because there's other dimensions when you're on higher frequencies and higher levels of awareness. So that brings me to, you know, we all have the same 6 human needs, and getting people to understand that, you know, we all need certainty. We all need uncertainty. You know, we all need love and connection. We all need growth. We all need to know how we can contribute, you know, to society and other fellow human beings in the world in one form or another, you know, because we know that learning how to be a better giver than you are a receiver will makes me feel a lot better, knowing that I left somebody with increase and them feeling better. You know, it's like, oh, okay, but I don't have to talk about it. I just do it. You know what I'm saying? And that's you know what the world needs to understand that more. And then like with the 6 higher faculties, you know, by tapping in, like you said, the pineal gland and stuff, and that meditation, the Jose Silva that I turned you on to, that's exactly what they teach, is like connecting the left brain with the right brain. We live in a mechanical world. Everything is mechanical, on, off, this, turn this, move that, you know, mechanical. That's how we get things done. And then the right side of the brain that controls our left side of our body, is the creative side, and learning how to tap into the creative. And that's my big thing, is like, I want to see people learn how to use their imagination and be creative, which is part of the 6 higher faculties that Einstein talked about. Having perception, learning how to reason, and learn how to trust your intuition, use your imagination, and increase your memory, and have a stronger will. Do I really need to have that drink? Do I really want to smoke that joint? Do I really want to eat that ice cream? Do I need a second helping? You know? So, and that's where I want to do my part and help educating the world and spread this knowledge to people.
Thank you for joining us today at the Organic Matrix, and I hope you're enjoying Ron's wisdom as much as I am. Next episode, we'll be continuing our conversation with Ron.